So I'm touting positivity all the time. I'm the positivity shrink. Today, we're going to figure out what negative thinking does to your brain. We have a choice after all, positive or negative. Where's our thinking? In the first video that I released when we started doing daily content at Live on Purpose TV, I talked about how to stay positive no matter what. You might remember from that video that you can link to right up here that there are two processes in our brain. I've got a little card here that brings the graphic back into perspective. There's evaluation and creation that our mind is constantly doing. As we evaluate our current situation or what it is, we generate either a positive or a negative kind of an emotion or feeling. That emotion or feeling sets us up for what we're going to do up here in creation mode, where we move forward and create what is to be. Review the video and you'll get a good sense of what the model is all about. Here's why I've referred back to that. What we do in our own thinking as we evaluate our life. So here's the short version. Is my life good or is my life bad? Now that's oversimplified and nobody really thinks in those terms, or do we sometimes? Either way, it's going to create some kind of a feeling. The reason for this has to do with chemistry. Pure and simple. It's brain chemistry. My buddy Scott Halford, who is an amazing speaker and trainer, and who wrote this book, Activate Your Brain, Scott drilled it down to two basic chemicals that symbolize what it is that's going on in our brain. Now, there's more than two, okay? And he acknowledges that too. But if you'll just think of these two, it'll help you to remember it. Negative thinking triggers a little bump of cortisol into your central nervous system and your bloodstream. Now, cortisol is a stress chemical. Cortisol is what is released to help prepare your body for the fight or flight response. And then there's other things too, like adrenaline and other chemicals that contribute. But cortisol gets triggered by our thoughts. What does negative thinking have to do with our brain health? Well, everything. Because if we're triggering cortisol into our central nervous system, we're going to have a very different experience than if we trigger a different chemical. Cortisol has the effect of shutting down some of the higher cognitive parts of our brain, like our prefrontal cortex, which is in charge of thinking, logic, problem solving. Also some cool things like empathy, compassion, forgiveness. Shuts her down. It's not even available to us. We are deactivating that part of our brain. Why? Because we've got to redirect our resources down to a more primitive part of our brain that we might call the survival brain, the limbic system, the fight or flight part of our brain, that basically just empowers us to do one of those two things, either put up our dukes and fight or get the heck out of there because we're not safe. All right, so notice that you can trigger those chemicals by your thoughts. That's pretty important. What if we were to think something positive about our life? So I gave you the extreme example of my life is bad, cortisol, fight or flight, or my life is good. That feels different. Why does it feel different? Chemistry. Going back to the brain, Scott pointed out when you think in those terms, you get a little bump of dopamine. Now, dopamine is a totally different chemical. It tends to give you feelings of peace and contentment and good feelings, right? Pleasant feelings. But it also has an effect on your brain. And the effect is that it redirects the blood flow from those lower primitive areas of your brain up to the prefrontal or higher cortical areas of your brain. The dopamine that we're talking about now is a completely different chemical from cortisol. It has a completely different effect in addition to all those pleasant feelings that it gives you, it also activates the higher cortical areas of your brain, allowing you to do some of those really awesome things like problem solving and conflict resolution and compassion and empathy and all of that great stuff that you need the higher parts of your brain to accomplish. You can trigger and activate that by your thoughts. This is so powerful. So powerful. The chemistry in your brain, in your central nervous system, in your body can be triggered and affected by your very thoughts. It matters what you think. Here's a little experiment that you can do. And I love this one because it gives you a quick experience with either the cortisol or the dopamine that we were talking about. What if you were to ask yourself, am I on schedule? You know, with your life, with your relationships, with your business, with whatever it is. Just ask yourself, am I on schedule? Now, do you know? Do you know for sure whether you are or aren't? Like you've got some cosmic connection to the grand calendar of all things. Do you know? No, you don't. So you got to pick a position about that. What you choose to think is going to make a difference. Now, experiment with this. Think for just a moment. Oh, I'm behind. I'm behind. I'm not up to date here. I'm not on schedule. Ugh, I don't even like this part of the experience because it makes me feel nervous and upset and kind of like something's wrong. Notice that. Those feelings are because of chemistry. The chemistry is because of the thought that I'm not on schedule. And I don't know. So that's a position that I can choose. Now, switch it over. In fact, just do this, okay? Humor me. Get a little smile on your face, okay? Goofy little smile like I've got. Raise your eyebrows just a touch. Little lilt to your voice as you say, I'm right on schedule. Just try that. Yeah, how was that? I'm right on schedule. Oh, you know what? It's a totally different feeling, isn't it? Do you know? No, you don't. We already established that. But what if you were to take that position? I'm right on schedule. And notice how that feels. How would it feel if you really believed it? Okay. Yeah. See, now we have just activated the brain with a whole different chemical. It's not like it solves anything. What it does is it puts you in position to solve anything. Do your thoughts matter? Oh yeah. And you get to choose what they are. Negative thinking has a very different effect on your brain chemistry than positive thinking does. Notice that. Experiment with it. Have some fun with it and let's see if we can activate our brain to work for us instead of against us. Big shout out to my buddy Scott Halford who helped us to learn how to activate our brain. You're going to want to share this with somebody.